No Country for Old Men is a 2007 American neo-Western crime thriller film written, directed, produced, and edited by Joel and Ethan Coen based on Cormac McCarthy's 2005 novel. While on a hunting trip, Llewellyn Moss stumbles upon the bloody remains of a drug deal gone wrong. Despite knowing the risks, he takes a suitcase full of cash, setting off a deadly chain of events. His decision draws the attention of Anton Chigurh, a relentless and remorseless killer who begins tracking him. Meanwhile, Sheriff Ed Tom Bell, an aging lawman grappling with a rapidly changing world and his own haunted past, joins the search, hoping to find Moss before it's too late. Alright, so this is a movie that I've been very anticipated to see for a very long time, mainly because I feel like it came out in a year filled with other really highly acclaimed films, mainly There Will Be Blood. And I've watched There Will Be Blood, which is an insanely good film, about like a month ago. And I've always, like, ever since seeing that film, I've always been curious as to why that film won neither Best Original Screenplay or Best Picture or even Best Director. Like, the fact that it didn't even win any of those three awards just sort of ticks me off the wrong way. And I was like, that's crazy that this other film called No Country for Old Men won all three of those. And so, I really wanted to see what this was all about, if it was worth that type of critical acclaim. And I do have to say that this is a really, really brilliant film. No Country for Old Men blends a chase narrative with a very deep character study and some very stark visual storytelling. It explores randomness and senselessness of violence embodied by Chigurh's own twisted philosophy and coin toss fate motif. It reflects on the passage of time, moral decay, disorientation of aging in a very rapidly changing world. It poses also a lot of existential questions through the Sheriff Bell's introspective final monologue. His monologue towards the end of the film really cements what this movie is all about. It implies the futility of trying to hold on to order in a chaotic and indifferent world. I mean, like, in a rapidly changing world, your ideals and your beliefs, your ideologies don't necessarily like persist, or they don't permeate through generation and generation. And so I really like, and I thought it was a very interesting philosophy. To be honest, when I was like, I would say 2/3 into the film, I thought this was just a complete like thriller film. It had some allusions to like some sort of higher philosophy or higher existential meaning, but overall, like 2/3 into this film, I thought this was just like a complete thriller chase. Killer trying to assassinate this everyday man, and it was just like this, like literally just like an adventure thriller. That's all I thought it was. But then, towards the end of the film, I was like, oh, this really shifted my perspective. It really, to be honest, the entire time I thought Josh Brolin's character of Moss was like the protagonist. And to an extent, I would consider Moss to be a protagonist, but I think you sort of realize once you really fully understand the film, I think you realize that the sheriff is actually the protagonist, and we see things a lot from his perspective as opposed to Moss's. And so I thought that was sort of a plot twist in and of itself. I thought it was pretty interesting. I think Anton Chigurh definitely stands out as one of cinema's most chilling villains. He represents inevitability, and death rather than just pure evil. And so in that case, he's a bit of a symbol. He's another type of allegory that points out to what Bell. He's an allegory to Bell's overall philosophical message. And so these, like, Moss and Chigurh are kind of just like allegorical symbols in this larger philosophical narrative. But yeah, I mean, Chigurh is creepy as hell. I read somewhere, and I'm pretty sure like a lot of people know this, but I just find it funny that a group of psychiatrists apparently chose Anton as the most clinically accurate portrayal of a psychopath. They watched like this group of psychiatrists apparently watched like 400 something films. But yeah, I mean the fact that Javier Bardem um, performed, or his performance was like the most clinically accurate portrayal of a psychopath, that speaks volumes of how great his acting is in this film, and also how just overall creepy this character was. Um, Moss, I would say he is the character that Josh Brolin plays. He's a very morally ambiguous everyman. There's nothing too special about him. He's like a hunter, essentially, and he makes this choice that happens to be very fateful, and it sort of triggers his own downfall and triggers a lot of the sequences that occur in this film, the very violent sequences. And so I quite liked that there was nothing really particularly special about this character, yet he triggers the events. Bell, of course, he's portrayed by Tommy Lee Jones as a wise, grounded person, sheriff, yet increasingly powerless. He's not necessarily, without, obviously, I mean, this is an old film, so it's okay if I sort of spoil, but he doesn't really necessarily put an end to the violence. He sort of just serves as the film's emotional core and center. He's like the philosophical, centrical guy, and so that's why I would consider him as protagonist. But he's also like, he's in a way sort of like this omniscient being, because he's not really too tied into like the violent events occurring in the film, but yes, he also like bears the philosophical and symbolic meaning of this film. And that's why I think this film is so interesting on so many levels. I feel like this is a film you could definitely watch more than once, and you'll still get like a different interpretation of it. The Coen brothers, these guys have showcased mastery in suspense and tone. Funnily enough, the only other Coen brothers film that I've seen is actually the first film in their filmography, which I believe is called Blood Simple. That's like the only other film I've seen of theirs. And I wasn't too big of a fan of that film. I thought it was quite interesting and really, really brilliant for a first, for a directorial debut. But in a way, I could definitely see No Country for Old Men is, first of all, like levels above that film, but also like it definitely felt like Blood Simple was a predecessor of No Country for Old Men. Not in any way that the plots are sort of similar, although they do have similar beats in a way. They have similar, like, I don't know, sort of twists and turns and violent beats. But just like the whole style of it all, the whole direction just feels very familiar of that film. And so I like how, Coen brothers, they stepped up their game, but they didn't change their overall delivery of their messages. And so I really love that. Roger Deakins, my guy. This guy's probably the most brilliant cinematographer in all of cinema. He captures a very haunting and desolate beauty of Western Texas and that landscape. He uses lots of wide shots. He uses subdued lighting. He's truly a remarkable professional. And I'm always, I think whenever he's a cinematographer of film, it's going to be a very, very beautiful movie. The musical score was actually absent, which I thought was a pretty interesting choice. There's a lot of, heightening action-filled moments that have absolutely no score, and it's like completely silent. And the only things you hear are like, the panting of characters, the actual gunshot sounds, and that's it. Which overall just heightened the tension, and it made the scenes and those moments feel a lot more urgent and a lot more grounded in realism. I think a lot of the time musical tones, especially in action sequences, they kind of over dramatize what's actually going on. But I love that the fact that there was no score whatsoever. You really feel like you're in there in the scene, and it just makes it all the more tense. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about the performances now. Tommy Lee Jones, this guy is, of course, he's a, I guess I could just say he's an expert. This man, with age comes wisdom, of course, and with choosing roles very carefully and outperforming others sometimes. he's brilliant in this film. I thought he delivers a very nuanced and weary performance as this aging sheriff. Um, I thought Josh Brolin, he added depth to Llewellyn Moss, because again, Moss is like this everyday man. There's not too much, that's not like something like, there's not an it factor to him, essentially. He really is just that everyday man. And yet Josh Brolin just added so much depth. He made him like sympathetic, yet he also made him flawed in a way. I thought the minor roles, actually, funnily enough, the supporting roles in this film, the supporting roles are not like played by people, and that's what makes them like character actors, I believe is the correct term. They give off some of the best performances. They add so much authenticity. Probably my best, honestly, probably one of the best performances of the year, to be honest, was the and he's a character actor, but like the store clerk of the gas station, like the cashier person. I mean, it's one of the most infamous scenes of 2007, but like when Anton does like the whole, coin toss monologue to him, and I don't know, that cashier person, he really put on a performance. It really felt like he was actually being threatened. So I don't know. I just love character actors. I feel like they're so brilliant. I know J.K. Simmons, who's one of my favorite actors. He was also a character actor. I just feel like they're so experienced that they're only like in a movie for like 3 or so minutes, but they generally become the most memorable part of the film. But by far, of course, the best and generational worthy performance by far comes from Javier Bardem. He gives a very chilling and understated portrayal of Sugar. He is absolutely frightening. Definitely deserved the Oscar. I actually watched Michael Clayton before I saw this film. I did a review on that, and I'm forgetting the actor's name, but the supporting actor for that film was also nominated for the Oscar. And he did such a wonderful performance as well. And I remember saying to myself, like, how come he didn't win the Oscar? Who else was nominated that year? And of course, Javier Bardem. So it makes sense. Javier was truly something else. He really put on a generational, lifetime performance in this film. Performances were fire. Other notes that I have to give shout outs to, the dialogue overall was very minimalist, it wasn't overbearing at any point. And so because of that, there's also a lot of extended scenes of just quiet action. I think that overall just added to the suspense for the film. The film also has a very slow building up. It has a slow build up, but there's also abrupt transitions. And I think overall, the slow build up, the transitions, they just mirror the unpredictability of this entire film. And I think the haunting, I think overall, the message of this film is a very haunting and meditative reflection on violence, on fate, and if we were to like truly get like really analytical, I think this is like sort of a reflection on the American frontier. I saw some people's analyses on that. It's just like a reflection on the ever-changing landscape of America, and how it's sort of devolving. How do I speak? It's in bit of a decline, is what I'm trying to say. It's in bit of a decline. And so it's sort of a pessimistic outlook in a way. But I thought it was brilliant. The final scene is so open-ended. The final monologue I'm referring to. To be honest, I actually wasn't like, because I had for so long throughout the like 2/3 like the duration of the film, I was just so locked into like the suspense and the thrilling sense of it all that I wasn't really looking into the philosophical message. And so when that final scene came of the monologue, I wasn't too touched by it. I thought it was a bit like it felt a bit out of place, but now looking back, I felt like, no, that wasn't out of place at all. That was what the movie was trying to speak, And so I kind of like how this movie points you, or it makes you sort of peer into an outlook, a specific interpretation of this film, but then the ending says, no, this is what it was actually about. And so that's why I sort of consider it as a bit of a twist. It's just very, very open-ended and very reflective, and it encapsulates the broader philosophical message of what this movie is about, of trying to, I guess, like, being powerless in a very chaotic world that continues to change, and, the senselessness of it all, and, things change, you can't really do anything about it. And I thought it was a really smart message, and also like weirdly evocative in a film that has to do with a murderer, trying to kill someone. To be able to tie in that message speaks volumes about the mastery that the directors Ethan and Joel Coen can pull off. So I mean, those dudes are brilliant. I have to watch more of their films. But yeah, overall, No Country for Old Men, insanely good film. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. But yeah, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.